you gone to see Black Panther Wakanda Forever? Sadly, there is no way yet to stream the new sequel to the hugely popular Black Panther, so going to the movie theater is the only viable option right now. The movie is a big tribute to the late Chadwick Boseman, although sometimes it feels a bit artificial. But before I go on with my review of the movie, please hit like and subscribe button and the little bell to receive notifications about my future reviews and other videos shared on this channel. And let's dive right in. Wakanda Forever begins with a long winding funeral procession for King T'Challa, who recently passed. Shuri, played by Letitia Wright, and Queen Ramonda, played by magnificent Angela Bassett, are both fully clad in white following the blackest black coffin adorned with mask of Black Panther and the crossed hands of the Wakandan salutation sign. Between the procession and some slow dancing in parallel makes it all feel quite eerie. Coffin stops and slowly rises up in the air. An emotional montage of T'Challa's shots follows, which eventually morphs into Marvel's logo. Yes, Marvel, we know, no need to point out that you're in charge. Some stories don't really want to be Marvel's official creations. Like for example The Legion, have you heard about it? It's streamable on Hulu. It doesn't even feature the usual Marvel logo anywhere, but the story found its way to the screen thanks to Marvel. And so is with the Black Panther comic. Its existence just outside of the MCU is what gave the first movie additional boost and success. Black Panther stood its own ground, it was made humorous and complete, seemingly unaware of the franchise requirements and rules. But with this next movie, co-writers Coogler and Cole didn't have the freedoms to implement a similar build. Not only they had to step in line to attend to the usual franchise standards, but also they were not in control of some events such as Buzzwick's passing, which caused them to rewrite and rejuggle a big chunk of the story. Yet they did come back with a sincere celebration of T'Challa's character and Boswick's persona, which in my opinion is a success on its own. There is an amazingly vast array of storylines and themes. White people are the main threat trying to colonize the area where Wakanda is, and rather than fighting them, their common enemy, two African kingdoms are fighting each other for some reason. And so they had to touch up on the colonization and destruction of the indigenous people of North and South Americas. They had to attend to other ridiculous, in my opinion, requests from Marvel, as for example setting up for the spin-off series Iron Heart starring Dominic Thorne. They had to give Boseman proper goodbyes, grieve his death, and find new Black Panther. They also had to make the movie more like it's a part of the MCU, usher in the next phase and such. It was too much, and sometimes the movie feels inconsistent. It fails to deliver the point pretty much at every key moment, starting with the setup. Colonist countries are now afraid of the African superpower, scouring the world in search for vibranium, the actual metal behind the superpower. Dominic Thorne's Riri, a young and brilliant scientist, yet just a secondary character in my opinion, gives the tools to start the search in the oceans, which leads deep underwater where Namor, or Namor, played by the aspiring Tenoch Huerta, sits as the ruler and king of Talokan, plotting to go to war against the surface world and get rid of it, because true great life is apparently underwater. This is nothing new, underwater creatures have always been jealous of the surface dwellers, and Atlantis people are no exceptions. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say Atlantis. This underwater world is not DC's Atlantis, please don't blame me for thinking so though. In any case, Namor, or Namor, goes to Wakanda. His offer of alliance sounds quite threatening when he approaches Steel Morning Queen Ramonda and bitter and resentful Princess Shuri. Namor's arrival forces Wakanda to seek help and advice from Everett Ross, played by the token white guy Martin Freeman, which opens the door to other cameos and small storylines. And they really only weigh down the movie with plots set up just in expectations of the continuation of this franchise. What's really cool about Wakanda Forever is the way Coogler gave so much attention to Angela Bassett's character, very underused and neglected in the first movie, in my opinion. Queen Ramonda's first important appearances telling of the United Nations for expecting to get a share of vibranium that Wakanda allegedly stockpiled, and while trying to actually steal it from them. Basset really gives the scene all she's got. Her voice booms in the hall, her eyes burn with accusation and rage, unforgiving and admonishing. And there is Shuri, who locked herself in the lab developing dangerous weapons, and feeling even worse after death of T'Challa. She just wants to see the world in flames. This anger the two women share forces them on a so-called spree of short-sighted decisions that escalate problems with Namor even more, who now guns to avenge his ancestors no less, and also is in despair and suffers as much as the two women do. But then all these concentrations of Namor's life experiences, adversities and atrocities he suffered really takes the movie in an unexpected and hard to swallow direction. Why did they do so much of that, do you know? Maybe there is a connection between these storylines, but in my opinion, this movie did not actually manage to connect them. Water dwellers don't need to explain why they hate the surface world, it's just a given. There is, of course, a big gap created by the untimely passing of Chadwick Boseman and the decision or the need to reflect it in the movie, and maybe this real-life loss of the actor and the story part loss of the character have both allowed these remaining actors to really connect and play very impressive, deep reflections on this part of the story. But there are way too many empty dialogues just blurting out what's on their mind as it seems. This makes you think, why would they keep voicing out all of the moments? Is it done for the short attention span viewers? Is that what they think of us? Or did they just do the things that others would do these days? Why do they provide all these tiny details in actual script lines? Why not let actors just act? There is even a part where Shuri, having listened to all of the Namor's backstory, goes, "Why are you telling me all of this?" It's quite humorous to me, as it seems that director also was feeling something similar. Although somewhat distorted and hard to follow, I love the fight scenes of Wakanda Forever, but I'm really a sucker for a good old-fashioned comic book-like imaginative fight sequences that really shine on the CGI masters implementing all the ideas and doing the actual work here. On the other hand, when seeing the everyday life in Wakanda, also the work of CGI peeps, it doesn't captivate as much as it did in the first movie. Maybe they didn't want to have it centered in this movie and gave more attention to Talokan's gigantic Mayan creations of architecture, but then again, this ode to Latin America's great old nations would be better said as a movie of its own, possibly a movie called Namor, something like an origin story. There are maybe some studio politics at play, maybe Coogler tried to do two in one, or maybe Marvel said no to the idea of Namor the movie and insisted on doing it as a part of Wakanda Forever. It is hard to tell. Finally, a major sea battle happens, the new gadgets are in use and loose ends are sort of tied with another montage dedicated to Boseman and his character. And while the film is messy, one feels somewhat relieved that it began and ended, well, properly, I would say. Most of the future franchise setting plans seem to center around Princess Shuri and her amazing performance as actor as well as her complex character. And so, we think that next movie of the series will center around her as the Black Panther. That we do until the mid-credits little sequence, and I'm not sure what Coogler was thinking setting that up. But he had a lot of secular and social weight on him for this movie, way more than any other filmmakers has ever had or deserves to have. But the scene really feels pulled out of the pocket and may be heavily influenced by the death of T'Challa in the movie franchise. In comic books, by the way, he is still alive and well, functioning as both the Black Panther and as the King of Wakanda. He doesn't have any kids to pass the mantle to, and he was only ever romantically involved with Storm of the X-Men. That was not included in the movies for obvious reasons. Wow, spoiler alert, a bit too late. I may have just shared a spoiler here. Yes, the mid-credits scene reveals that T'Challa had a son who was kept away from Wakanda to make sure he grows up without any regal weight or responsibilities affecting him. But I honestly think only one of 100 viewers will actually finish listening to my review, so there is actually no spoiler here as I'm concerned. Thanks for listening to me rant about the movie. While there are a few negative in my opinion moments, the movie is super awesome and deserves your attention and the $15 ticket fee. Check it out if you haven't yet. As for my part, please hit like button and subscribe to my channel, enable notifications bell to know when my future videos come out. Have a good time.